Hello, I'm back for hopefully the final installment of the Massie murders that occurred in 1914. If you would like to see the rest of the videos, they will be posted on our YouTube page as well as our Facebook page and on Instagram. We were discussing Harley Beard. He has, at this point, last episode, he was arrested. He was found in Chicago in his sister's home. He was arrested. He was brought back to Ohio. There was a lot of concern of whether he would be able to make it to Lawrence County and that he would not be lynched once he arrived in Lawrence County due to the horrendous and violent murders that was committed by him. One noted fact was the fact that Miss Mary Massie, who was the daughter of Robert, the sister of Robert, daughter of Nancy, so the youngest of the three Massies, had been tied up, and some people believed that it was in fact she was first murdered, not Robert. What was interesting was the manner in which she was tied up. It was indicative of methods used to tie up victims during the Spanish Inquisition, which happened to be a favorite topic of research for Harley Beard. After Harley was arrested, a rumor came, and I could not verify whether, I'm assuming this was found false, but they believed that in fact he was a farmhand who had killed 12 people in Kansas. According to the Cincinnati Post article published in the 16th of May, 1914, photos of Harley was sent to Kansas to verify whether he was in fact the murderer of the farmhand who had committed those murders. Since there was no other articles on that particular topic, I'm going to assume they turned out to be false. But there was a lot of rumors going around at the time. He did plead guilty, and so he was sentenced to be executed. And of course in Ohio we did have the electric chair. That was the method of execution at the time. His execution was to occur in December 1914. He committed the crimes in May of 1914. Governor James M. Cox was the one who was in charge. He was beset regularly by letters and pleas to have Harley's execution stopped and turned into a life imprisonment. A group of women actually went to the governor's office, tears streaming down their faces, according to the newspaper. They sent an avalanche, again, what was used in the newspaper, of letters. They believed that Harley was mentally irresponsible. And that was something that a lot of people kept repeating, that he was in fact somehow mentally disabled in such a way that he could not have realized what he was doing or the severity of his actions. At the same time that Harley was facing the death penalty, another man was facing a death penalty. There was a young man named Wesley Jenkins. He was a black man who was arrested and charged with murdering his mistress, Nellie Bailey. He also was sentenced to be executed, and in fact he and Harley were sentenced to be executed on the same day. This would have been the first double execution in Ohio since 1904, so it had been 10 years. The ladies who were crying and pleading for Harley's life weren't the only people who had petitioned or talked to the governor. Reverend J.W. Wine of Culbertson from Lawrence County pleaded with the governor to change his sentence to life in prison. The governor was not moved at all. In fact, for some reason, Governor Cox, directed Warden Thomas of the penitentiary not even to permit William E. Massey to witness execution. William was Nancy's son and Robert and Mary's brother. He was one of the relatives left to the Massie family, and specifically, William had actually lived with his brother, sister, and mother on the family farm just shortly before the murders. So he was definitely willing to witness the execution. And from what I was able to find from my records, he did actually get to, but the governor really didn't want that to happen. Harley actually took time to write the governor himself. In his plea, he mentioned that he stated, "I am a boy. I am not asking for justice, but for mercy." Not only did he ask for mercy for himself, he asked for mercy for his fellow prisoner Wesley Jenkins, who was sentenced to be executed beside him. Basically, Harley claimed that it was not his fault that he committed the murders, or more likely, he didn't feel like he was mature enough to truly understand his actions, and he felt that he should have a life in prison rather than an execution. Dr. E.A. Hamilton of Columbus, who worked at the penitentiary hospital at one time, said that Harley should be given another mental examination. A man by the name of Dr. Harold N. Moyer, who was an alienist, which means an alienist was a psychiatrist who assesses the competency of a defendant in a criminal case. He also was a former commissioner of health for Chicago, and he was the leading alienist of the Middle West. He was an expert. He offered expert testimony in court, and he also came to Harley's defense. He was quoted as saying, "He is not a criminal, but an imbecile." Both men were ignored. Harley's brother also wrote the governor, and in his letter, he proceeded to claim that he and Harley had no religious training, that they had been victims of abuse by their parents, and in fact, on one occasion, the parents had even beat them severely for attending church. This brother was actually in Ironton and was working as a fireman in a factory. No matter how many people, though, pled for Harley's sentence to be changed from execution to life in prison, it didn't matter. He was, in fact, set for execution. He was, on the day of the execution, shortly after midnight, he was strapped to the electric chair. He was pale when he walked into the room, followed by the chaplain of the penitentiary, Chaplain Reed. His final words Harley's final words was a letter of advice to young men and women. "Dear boys and girls, I think that I will write you that you, who are fatherless and motherless in the world, should get with books and leave tobacco and all strong drinks alone, because I know what they are. I smoked those cigarettes, and they affected my mind. Get the Bible and look at God. I did not read the Bible, nor did I look at God. And if I had read it and looked to the high one above all, I would not have gone to the penitentiary. Now, boys and young men, you know that I did not know, and if I had had you, would have had a friend in me, although I was a murderer. I have a heart that goes out to anyone who is in trouble. I was fatherless and motherless and did not look up to God and his Son, Jesus." That was listed. Those were his last comments before it was in the Akron Beacon on the 4th of December 1914. He was strapped again into the electric chair. And his last words, final words, was, "You should not send me to meet my Maker in this manner." He was electrocuted and he was pronounced dead at 12:16 a.m. The second execution began at 12:22 a.m. So in less than 6 minutes, they had removed Harley Beard's body, and Wesley Jenkins was placed in the electric chair, where he too met his end. That is the final installment of the 1914 Massie murders. I hope you enjoy this, and I will see you next time.